Okay, thank you for joining us again, and I'm delighted to welcome along for our interview today Richard Bradley, who's the CEO of ACCEPTCARDS, based in Elland, West Yorkshire. Richard has 35 years of commercial financial experience, 15 of them in merchant services, when he set up ACCEPTCARDS. He set up his business to be different and to be one that works with all the UK acquirers, so the merchant gets what they need, not what the sales companies say they need. Richard is passionate about working with partners and delivering truly independent advice in all aspects of payments, with the support of an incredibly dedicated, experienced and loyal team. And we'll come to that later, I'm sure. Richard is recognised as an industry expert and is never far away from an industry social event and finds out what's new in the world of payments. He's always looking to drive innovation within the sector. Away from the office, Richard loves football and is a lifelong Stoke City fan. And if he's not at the Bet365 Stadium, you can find him on a golf course or at a gig. So that might come into the conversation as well. Although since September last year, Richard has brought two of his loves, beer and business, together when he became a co-owner of a lovely rural pub, the Green Man, which is located in Scamblesby, near Louth. Richard opened the doors in late December after carrying out extensive renovations, just in time to host the village Christmas carol service. So welcome, Richard. So it's lovely to have you here and to be chatting to you today, which is always good. We've sort of known each other from a short intervention that we had last year in terms of just looking at your social media and looking at how it works and that kind of thing. So, but obviously, as I've sort of slightly alluded to there, I know one of your team members, Jason Costello, quite well. Jason and I have known each other probably all the time that Social Progress has been in existence, or not long after that. So, and I know that you've got an excellent member of the team there, really passionate about what he does, and I'm sure that you're really enjoying working with him. So welcome today. So.
Thank you, Janet. It's a pleasure to be here and to talk to you.
Good. So what we're going to do is we've just got a few questions that we're going to ask you, and so we'd love to hear kind of your feedback on some of these. So obviously the first question that we've got there, as you can read on screen, is as a business owner myself, I'm always fascinated to learn what was the EUREKA moment that made you set up your business at ACCEPTCARDS back in 2005. I know it's very, very different to a lot of the merchant services, the independent merchant services. So I am keen to hear, you know, what made you think to set this up? I don't know of anybody else that does it in the way that you do it. So.
I suppose, I mean, back in 2005, when I look back 15 years, we were sort of innovators, really. So we're doing what we did, and actually, in that period since, no one's really sort of we come across that does what we do. So go back to 2005. I'd been 5 years since leaving NatWest RBS to basically forge a new business in commercial property and development finance. I was actually, strangely, as you mentioned, the Green Man, I was in the pub. I can't actually remember which pub it was, to be fair, but I was in the pub one evening with a good friend of mine who we'd worked together at NatWest at Streamline. So you remember the name Streamline before it became WorldPay.
Yeah.
So we're having a beer and having sort of built a independent commercial mortgage brokerage business. I said to Mark, you know, what's wrong with looking at having a independent brokerage for merchant services? Because particularly even more so back then, 15 years ago, most businesses would be shoehorned, I think is probably the polite way of putting it, to use the merchant services of the bank where their business bank account was. So if you banked with NatWest, they try and push you down towards WorldPay. If you banked with Barclays, Barclaycards and Lloyds Cardnet. So what most businesses didn't realise was that they didn't have to use that provider. A bit like going to an insurance broker or a mortgage broker to go to the market to get you the best solution that fits your business. They were basically sort of going down just one route and not having the best advice and choice available. So that was the Eureka moment, really.
Do you still find, though, that people assume that they have to go to the merchant provider attached to the bank where they bank, or not? Do you not find that that's the case these days?
I think to a certain degree they do, but not as much as 15 years ago. I think sometimes customers feel obliged to use the payment provider of the bank they bank with. In reality, the bank manager probably doesn't even have a clue that they're using them anyway, but there's a sort of a mental sort of decision there really to do that. But I don't think it's as big an issue that now as it was. I think there are sort of there's wider sort of there's more there's I say issues. There's other areas which sort of can impact on the customers getting the best advice now that there weren't around 15 years ago, which is probably even more of a reason why they perhaps need independent advice now more than ever.
It's interesting because when you set up in 2005 was the same time as I left the bank, actually. So it's interesting. So yeah, I got put on garden leave in December 2004 and technically left the bank, Barclays Bank it was, in March 2005. And you're totally right. You know, we would never have heard of a client using a different provider other than Barclays Merchant Services and stuff, so in Barclaycard. So yeah, it just wouldn't have been heard of. But how things have changed in those 15 years and stuff.
Absolutely. You know, in essence, you know, routing the card payment transactions from your card machine or from your website or phone payment, you know, virtual terminal type facilities, it's routing the payment down a telephone line or broadband, you know, to Visa MasterCard via the payment processor and then to your bank account. So it's really no more than a transactional service, you know, like a phone line or your mobile phone provider. So although I say that with a bit of a hesitancy, because obviously pricing isn't always the key element when we make a decision on who best to advise the customer to go to.
But you're right, you know, if you assimilate it to a mobile phone provider, I had this conversation with somebody only last week where, you know, I'm on O2, and I used to be direct with O2 until the point where I was looking around and decided to actually move away from O2 and use a independent broker to help me with that process. And it's only when I did that O2 came to me and said, oh, well, let me put you through to the retention team, see if we can get you some money off. Whoa, I got a minute here. You should have been getting me money off already. And for that very reason, I will not go to O2 Direct, because they didn't service my mobile phone in the right way. So price doesn't always come into it. Sometimes it's about having that service behind the price, and you might pay a little bit more for it, but you know you're getting a good service. So I'm sure that comes into your arena as well.
Oh, exactly the same, Janet. And you know, I and all the team at ACCEPTCARDS, you know, because you know, we're all. I was very fortunate that when the business started to grow, sort of significantly sort of 10 years ago, the bank in its wisdom decided to close one of the centres down where I worked. And fortunately, I have probably 90% of my workforce used to work with me at the bank. So we've got a fantastic sort of experienced team of people with a good knowledge of businesses and banking, how to look after people, how to understand what their requirements are. And that fits perfectly with our ethos and business model of always doing the right thing for the customer, you know. And it's and one thing we see all the time is customers who are signed up by a provider, and 5 years later they're on horrendously high rates because no one's bothered, you know, contacting them to look after them and proactively help them. And we find there's so many solutions for card payments that can benefit so many businesses outside of the cost of a transaction, that these companies don't get told about it, you know. So I think we see our role as a broker as basically being able to talk to each business individually, look at what they're doing, how they're taking the card payments, what's working well for them, not working well for them, what their plans are, how their customers want to pay them, and that's just as important as you know, as what they want. These days, it's very much more you know, how their customers want to pay them, and access their products and services. So there's so many questions around the need asking and finding out before we recommend the right solution. And our sort of biggest sort of issue, I think, with the way that a lot of and the banks are like this themselves, you know, customers that go directly to WillPay by their bank or to Barclaycards or Lloyds Cardnet, I think quite often they're quoted pricing for the product without really digging deep as to what it is the customer's really wanting. And that's really what we're all about.
Yeah, which brings us quite nicely on to this the next question, actually. But and what you've touched upon there, and I completely understand, is like you know, just before we go to the question, it's probably ingrained in you as much as it's ingrained in me. My core customer service absolutely comes from working in the bank. So what I found very strange is, like, when I joined the bank, which was many moons ago in 1977, so it's a long time back, and what we ended up going is from customer service into a sales type of service, if you like. As I left the bank, it was very sales orientated and very much about you know, get the sales in, not about the customer service, which was what's interesting now is where they've tried to turn that around again and look at the customer and look at customer service. But you know, obviously I've been to your office as well in Elland, and the first thing, always when I go to a place of work, the thing that I'm looking at, and this is again part of another background that I had working as a skills broker, I'm often looking to see, are the staff happy? Do they like working there? Is it a nice environment? And I loved it, actually. I loved coming to your place and seeing that actually it's not all about work. There's a few bits in there that's about play as well. And you could see that everybody get on nicely. And, you know, do you know what I mean? It's like you can tell as soon as you go into an organisation whether the team are enjoying being there or not. And obviously that's the same for us. We've tried to.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, it sounds corny, but I've never had one day where I've not looked forward to going to the office ever. And we're an incredibly tight team. We all support each other, and you know, and we all have the same ethos about looking after the customer first and foremost. And yeah, and it's great to hear you say that, because I mean, you know, we have so many partners, you know, across all the payment providers and all the solution providers and referral partners and networks, and you know, so many of them, when they come to see us, they kind of say, well, can I stay, you know, can I work here? You know, it's it's a great place to be. And you know, we have some fun, but we do work very hard, which is the key thing.
And that's the thing, isn't it, really? So question there, so having met and know you more about your successful company and knowing other payment business locally, other payments businesses locally, you are so much more than that. Would it be fair to say that ACCEPTCARDS are unique in your sector? So would you say that you are unique?
I honestly think we are, and I think we were quite lucky, really, in some respects, that when we started building the company, we were ahead of the game, I think, in terms of providing sort of independent solutions to outside of the banks doing it themselves back 15 years ago, and due to that, and because we had, between myself and Mark, we had lots of really good contacts within the payments industry. With I mean, Streamline, I think, was processing 60%, probably 50 to 60% of all the card payments in the UK back in that time. So they had an awful lot of people that we knew that they'd left to go and work for the other providers. So it was quite sort of it was not say easy, but it was you know, a simpler process for us to make contact with the other providers and get contracts with all the other merchant service providers and offer that sort of whole of market solution. I think the banks now have the merchant service providers now only tend to like to have partners that sell their solution, or maybe one other at most. So I think we've kind of found ourselves in this unique sort of complete total market independent situation, because we've been around for so long, and we managed to achieve that very early on. And the key thing for us, and all our suppliers, all our merchant service partner suppliers, we must have probably 100 different solution providers across all different types of payment solutions. And they all say to us, how can we get more business from you? And the response that I and the team always give is, well, if you're providing, price is important, but price sometimes is very similar across all the providers, or quite a few of them. We say it all comes down to service. So when customers say to us, we want a provider that gives us good service as well as good rates, and obviously a solution that fits them, what they're wanting, then we say that's the key thing for us. So if the feedback we get from the customers we place with you is positive, and that includes the application process, the setting up process, the support, all the support elements of the merchant services, then you'll get more customers from us. And that's our approach all the time. So it's always what's best for the customer has to be number one. And you may have a question about this, maybe, and that links into the other part of our business, which is the partnerships.
Which is the next question I'll come to in a moment. But I was going to ask you how many different providers you work with, but I didn't quite realise there were even that many providers out there, to be fair. Sounds like you...
Yeah, well, without a word of a lie, I've spoken to 4 more new ones this week. And the background to that, again, I'm sure we'll cover later on, is, with what's happened with the sort of nightmare situation we found ourselves in with COVID-19, is that you've got a lot of digital payment solutions suddenly come to the market very quickly, for different business sectors. And so again, sort of, you've got a hardcore 12 merchant service providers, so as it were, a bit like sort of BT and Vodafone, etc. But you've then got loads of other sort of sub-service providers that connect into those, that can provide, additional solutions like sort of pay at table, ordering apps and things like that, and also queue busting. So if you've got a small cafe and you've got a large queue of customers, then a software solution that helps you kind of service those customers in the queue. And also for online as well, there's lots of additional products and solutions for online ordering, and websites and gateways. So there's so many different solution providers out there. So I make it my mission to find out who they are and what they offer and what they're good at. So my team, or the team at ACCEPTCARDS, they know all about those solutions. So every single time we speak to a customer, we know exactly what's going on, what's available, and I don't think anybody else offers that in the marketplace.
No. The thing is as well, I think we're similar but in different markets. It's like, because we specialise in one element of marketing, as in social media marketing, not marketing, then we very much are aware with what's coming up and what's current and what's new. And we're seeing that the social media platforms are having to change and adapt to the present situation, to support those small businesses or micro businesses with an online solution. So you're absolutely right, and one of the things that Facebook's done is the Facebook shops, and the way that they've changed that very quickly, it's not going to change fundamentally the way that people think it's going to do, but it will change. It still will, help with the process, but it won't change the way that potentially people think it will. But it is interesting to see how they've changed. Another thing that you just mentioned there is absolutely, I mean, just an example in terms of the customer service. If the customer service is spot on, you know, you're head and shoulders above everybody else straight off. So, and an example of that is we've just had a new client that's come on board that wanted some social media. They didn't have it before, and they've gone from 0 to hero. Why? Because their customer service was second to none before they even started with the social media side of things. So, you know, it's that ground, isn't it, really, of making sure you've got that in place and stuff. So that's absolutely that's good. Okay, so you mentioned the partnerships there. So as it says there, you build your business upon partnerships and not direct sales. Why was this? Is it true that you don't have any sales targets? So this is an interesting one, because most people would assume, and I alluded to it there with the bank, and that's absolutely how the banks used to operate. It's very much about those sales targets. But it's interesting to hear that you don't have a sales target. So tell me how that works.
I suppose with the background there, this goes a long way back, actually. I mean, sort of very briefly, when I was at NatWest and I had a team working with me, I managed the people, you know, that worked with me in a completely different way to how the bank wanted me to do it, and it was just the way that I worked. About building strong relationships and you know, getting your team on side, and then you all work together and the results follow. RBS took over in 2000, and it just changed overnight. The culture, you know, sell, you know, whatever you can sell, you know, do it approach, and that's what triggered me wanting to leave and go out and do something by myself. So I learned over the 5-6 years following that you know, if you provide a good service and you look after people and they trust you, then business will come in. You know, it's, you know, it's not hard to find business if you give a really good service and get the contacts and friends that you know and the business you work with to talk about you. Then that's how you build a business. And again, no direct marketing costs or anything like that. And so with ACCEPTCARDS, I made the decision to follow the exact same process. So I didn't want to be like lots of sales companies who, you know, trawl the streets, annoying shop retailers, you know, trying to sell them cheap, you know, review the gas, electric, card payments, you know, everything under the sun. You know, these poor shop owners probably have about 10 people in, obviously not at the moment, but, you know, in the past, you know, people all day walking into their shop trying to save them on things. Whereas my approach was actually, I'd much rather work with partnerships where they can refer and recommend their customers to speak to us. And that's the approach we built the business on. And it's been very successful on that basis. We have a wide network of accountants, trade associations, business consultants, cost reduction analysis. And we also have the two biggest challenger banks who refer clients to us as well. So the biggest one being Metro Bank. So Metro Bank, who excitingly are due to open their first Yorkshire store, as they call them, not branches, in Sheffield. It was supposed to open in March, but I think it's been postponed for obvious reasons. But soon we'll have our first Yorkshire-based Metro Bank. So we've been working with Metro Bank for 7 or 8 years now, and we are there. I mentioned before that you know, Barclays will try and, you know, encourage people to go down to Barclaycard and Lloyd's Cardnet and so forth. Metro Bank loved our approach for being independent, and they were using another provider. I won't mention the name, but they were using another provider, global provider, I might say, worth tens of billions of pounds, and they chose to work with ACCEPTCARDS, who at the time were you know, based in Dean Clough in a small little office with you know, 7 or 8 people working there, which was a fantastic day. We won that account, and the reason we won that was because their customers weren't being looked after. They were going into a call centre, they weren't being called, they weren't being, you know, serviced properly. And we came along, gave them the attention that they wanted, gave really good advice, looked after the customers, and the fact that we are very experienced in banking as well made it quite a seamless service for them to offer to their customers. So yes, so our whole business model is built around partnerships. I mean, we do get direct inquiries and referrals and recommendations from customers, and you know, I think we need to look at our website maybe as an area, as a business we need to review and look at, perhaps. It's always been quite difficult trying to get the message across on our website as to what we actually do, because we are so different, which has been a bit of a challenge. But certainly from the partnerships we have, we get some amazing customers coming to us, you know, ranging from, you know, small cafes, people selling widgets in their back bedroom, right up to retail stores, 50 chain retail stores, garages, and online retailers, restaurants, cafes, covering the whole sector. And again, because we've got such an experienced team of people, you know, talking to the, you know, your small business owner or the CEO or FD of a 100 million turnover company, we have the experience and you know, the people in ACCEPTCARDS who can deal with that.
I mean, that's great to hear. We're a bit the same in that we don't have sales targets as such. We have and probably you're the same, I would imagine, Richard, where we have a figure that we want to turn over per year, let's say, but we don't have specific sales targets as such. We're here more to work out, if a client comes to us, it's about looking at the right solution for the client, and somewhere along the line we'll make some money in that process, if that makes sense. We're all here to make money at the end of the day, but we're not here to rip businesses off, totally not. And we're the same. It's like, and I guess some of that again comes back to that banking background, and also and we have talked about this before, I know we have, that when I left the bank, which is a similar period to you, although I got made redundant, I didn't leave, I didn't take I got pushed rather than took the plunge, but you know, before I left, very, very similar, I got a bit disillusioned with the way that the banks were going, and the way that I helped to sort of run, if you like, a local call centre, and it was very much the same. It was about including people and looking at things collectively and making sure people were happy in that process, and looking at what options there were for the customer, what's the best solution for the customer, not what the bank wanted me to sell, let's say. So
yeah, exactly. Yeah. And that's I mentioned earlier on about sort of how things are different to 15 years ago, when I suppose the opportunity issues were customers not having the choice. Whereas now we find the biggest frustration, I think it's more of a frustration really, is when you hear from customers who have been told things that don't end up happening, just to encourage them to move to a new provider. So I think sadly, where you've got a very sort of sales commission driven environment, it does drive bad behaviours in a lot of situations. And you know, so we have customers that come to us and say, "Well, I didn't realise I signed a 4-year terminal agreement," you know, and you know, and you know, tactics that you think, no, it's just not quite, it's not fair. You know, and because customers, basically a lot of them are under pressure, they've got a new shop or they're really busy, there's lots going on, somebody comes in and offers them what they think is a really great deal, sign the paperwork, and you know, then that's it really. So it's difficult. So we I mean, one of the key things that we do is we always arrange the card machines as unlocked terminals, as it were. So the customer has full control over their processing. So it's a bit like having a mobile phone and being able to switch to any network that you want to after a month or 3 months because you're not happy for some reason, or your situation changes. And we do the same with our card machines. And so with the processing element being by far the most costly part of the solution, having that bit flexible is the key thing. Whereas what we tend to find is that the £16 with the card machine tends to be the thing that can often stop that from happening. So that really is important to us. And as you mentioned just then, the other key thing for us is, you know, if we can't help them, we'll be honest and say, you know, we'll say, yeah, actually, you're on a really good deal. You know, stay where you are. Or actually, why don't you stay there for 12 months because your terminal contract doesn't expire for, you know, for 18 months, we can look again then, because it's more cost effective to move. And sometimes we'll offer solutions that don't really make us any money, but it's the best thing. A good example is pay as you go. So, you know, you've got these sort of iZettle, SumUp, pay as you go devices. As a solution, it doesn't really make us much money at all, to be frank. But we recommend that so many times, because for so many small businesses, that is the best solution for them. And then as they grow and their business gets more established, then they might want something a bit more, you know, more relevant to what they need. And again, I think this comes back to the fact that you know, we don't have sales targets. We work towards a common goal. It's all about doing the right thing. And the key thing for us is our partnerships. Is, you know, the last thing we'd ever want is for a customer to go back to a partner that's referred them to us and said, ACCEPTCARDS sold us this or recommended this, and there was something else that was much better available. We can never do that.
But the other thing as well, based on that, is like if you're you know, helping with a solution that's a pay as you go, that you're not making any money from, and I know that you feel the same way as I do with this, Richard. It's like, it's not always about that one person that you're supporting with the right solution for that person, but you do not know who's in their network, and you do not know who they can potentially encourage somebody else to come and talk to you. That you might get some, you know, a better deal out, let's say, but it would still be the right solution. Don't get me wrong. It's not about making money out of it. It's about expanding that network, and the more you do the right thing by the right people, the more that has a knock-on effect, and the more referrals you get coming your way. And we've seen exactly the same thing. We get a lot of our business based on people that we've already worked with, who then tell other people to kind of speak to us and stuff. So because we want to do the right thing by the client, not just get work for the sake of getting work, really.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
Okay, so next question is, we have all been adapting, which we have, during the lockdown, with businesses changing the way that they work. And look at me, doing these interviews. I kind of fell into it, if I'm honest, but I have totally enjoyed doing them. I love them. I absolutely love doing them. I love speaking to the, you know, business owners and disability individuals, and just finding out a little bit about the background of those businesses and those individuals. So I've seen on social media that you've been able to support businesses navigating their individual needs. And I'd love to hear some examples of the kind of things that you've helped with, you know, the advice that you've given or the support that you've given. And it's always great to hear some examples of real life situations. So can you maybe talk us through a couple of those, Richard, please?
Yeah, absolutely. And this goes back to, again, what we were talking about right at the beginning, Janet, that, you know, we've all spent a lot of our time talking to people, you know, finding out what their issues are and how we can help, and helping them plan. And so we very quickly, as soon as the COVID issue sort of hit, we kind of thought, well, how's this going to impact the customers, you know, that we look after, and our partners' customers, you know, based on the sectors they're in, you know, whether it's restaurants or cafes that have had to suddenly close, or whether it's sectors where their turnover's doubled or trebled or quadrupled, which in food distribution it has. You know, there's certain sectors where they've actually, you know, they've gone through the roof in terms of their turnover, but that causes issues of how they can cope with the card payments. So we very quickly sort of looked at all the different ways and things that we could do to help, and we started publishing guides and information sheets to give to our partners and to put on social media, you know, to give the best advice. And then obviously the referrals we get from our partners, we then talk to them and do what we can to help. So some good examples are legal firms, you know, and businesses that function maybe with offices where they've had to relocate to their homes, and can't access the card machines for taking card payments, for payments of invoices. So we've been setting up lots of virtual terminals, so they can use the computers to take card payments. And again, sort of unbeknown to a lot of these businesses, they could in 90% of cases they can use their existing merchant account to actually for that facility. So we've not sort of, you know, unless they're on really horrendous rates, we've not told them to move or move their card processing. We've actually told them this is what you can do. This is, if you go to your card acquirer, they have this solution available. So we've done lots of those for various firms. Again, so food distribution, drink and food distributors, switching to online ordering for collection and delivery, and getting quick payment solutions onto websites. Again, that's been a very busy area that we've been involved with on that side. And I suppose on a more sort of local level, and a nice example, we have our favourite fish and chip shop in Elland. I'm sure Alex won't mind me mentioning the name Wendy's, but yeah, we supported Alex with some pay-as-you-go payment devices for his deliveries, and and in his words, he never thought he'd see the day when he'd need to take card payments. And again, I think that's been a massive thing that we've seen over the last month or two, is a huge sort of move towards say fish and chip shops, small delivery firms that never perhaps needed card payments before, who are now sort of delivering to consumers rather than delivering to other businesses. So they've gone more B2C rather than B2B. Many of them that I talked to will carry on doing B2C. They've created a new market for themselves in consumer deliveries. So we've done a lot of work with all those sectors. But yeah, but the fish and chip one in Elland is a really nice one, I think, because they're working their socks off helping the local community, when they needed support. And we felt that we could do the same by helping Alex. And and I think they've been very popular in terms of helping him take payments for his fish and chip shop deliveries. So yeah, there's loads of it's every single sector's been affected in one way or another. And again, sort of the benefit of us being independent and not tied to any provider, and the ability to go and find solutions, which I've been working on one for my pub, which it's quite often we see an issue or an opportunity, and then we go and find the solution to make it fit. Again, which is something we're really good at ACCEPTCARDS. So it's getting. I must say, actually, the last 2 weeks, in terms of the genuine inquiries we've seen coming through from businesses that are looking to open or new businesses, we've seen a big increase in the last 2 weeks. I think we're seeing hopefully the start of things getting back to normal. Fingers crossed over the next month or two.
So one of the things that we probably talked about before we came on air actually is that whole process of, you've got some businesses who kind of go, I'm just going to wait until it all comes back to normal, but we don't know what new normal will be. So yes, businesses will come back into the fore, if you like, and be able to trade a bit better than they are currently, but how that will look, we don't know. But we've seen, similar to you, Richard, where we've had a couple of businesses that we know either from our own personal network or that our clients, one is a coffee shop that they obviously can't have anybody coming into the coffee shop, and one of the things they do is you can order online, you can go and pick up, but yeah, I mean, they had the terminals before, but that's, everything has to be cardless, everything, it's like we can't take cash, so you've just got to be where it's cardless. And so that's fantastic that they actually, rather than going, oh well, we can't trade, they've looked at solutions of how they can trade. And then yeah, you're right, we have a similar one with a fish and chip restaurant where they've gone, right, well, let's deliver. So we've also got another one that's a brewery that they've gone out to get some, they've got delivery vans, and they're now delivering direct to the consumer. So there is things that people can do. I think it's just whether people have got the mindset of I can't do anything, or right, okay, how can I change and adapt?
Exactly. I think they'll feel. I think as things start to hopefully unfold in the next few weeks, and they maybe see other businesses start to do it, then it might give people encouragement to do. Yeah. But I think obviously we could talk all day about the situation and the issues around that. But I think until we know what can be done and what's safe. No one really knows yet how the hospitality sector will open properly in early July. But yeah, no, we've also one area we've been working on and we're very proactive on is we found out immediately from all our providers what they could do to support our customers. So where restaurants and cafes and retail shops have closed down completely and aren't using their card machine, we've managed to get them to suspend the card payment, monthly card payment charges, and things like that. So we've been quite proactive in actually trying to support all our customers in this period, whilst they want to keep the costs down effectively.
It's unbelievable. Saying to somebody earlier today, you do not realise how just people interacting with other people, how much businesses transacted around that whole process. I don't know how we'll see things go forward, but I'm sure there will be some solutions and people will find their ways around that. So which brings us nice on to the next question, actually, because although it says there spotted on LinkedIn that you're also a co-owner of a pub near Louth, obviously I do know that you are a co-owner of the pub near Louth, and clearly this has been a challenging time. So although you've got the card payment solutions, you're also in that environment of the people that you support, so you understand it from that perspective as well. So tell me how it's kind of affected you as the pub owner.
Yeah, it's it's completely different to running a card payments business, that's for sure. But I've really enjoyed being involved, and I mean, just as an aside, my business partner, was my first customer when I left the bank as a commercial broker, and I met him on the train to London.
All right.
So it just goes to show, just talking to people can often lead to things that can change your life, I suppose, in some ways. And he did become my biggest commercial mortgage client as well, as it happens. But yeah, the opportunity came up last September to do something with my business partner and to renovate and sort of bring back to life a local village pub. And it's been an amazing journey. We spent 3 months refurbishing it and getting it open for Christmas. We've got an amazing team of people working there. Most of them, 5 or 6 out of the 7 live in the village as well, so we're supporting the local economy. And we were just getting going in March, and then things, obviously, the situation happened. But yeah, so I think from my perspective, it's been interesting for two things. One is actually one of the first things that I did do was put in an EPOS system into the pub. So which when we talk to business customers, retail or pubs and cafes, and they kind of and ah about sort of investing money in an EPOS system that connects to their card machine and keeps the inventory and stock and reporting. I can understand it's a big decision, but I know for sure that having that system in place for me at the pub has been a godsend for me, because I can log on any minute of the day, get reports on what's going through, who's serving, what kind of products are being sold, the date, the time they're being sold. So I can manage that business, from a staffing point of view and from a product and a sales point of view, so much easier. So the actual cost of that investment has been absolutely worthwhile. And that basically means that when I talk to my team and I talk to other customers, I can talk passionately as someone that actually uses it and benefits from it. So that's been a really interesting part of having the pub. And the other interesting element was obviously how we're going to cope when we open. We're fortunate we've got a large beer garden, and we've got a reasonable amount of space inside. We might have to reduce from 2 meters space, we might have to reduce from 14 tables down to 7 or 8. If it's a meter distance, we might get away with 10 or 11 or 12. So we'll have to wait and see what the government announce on that side of things. But the key thing for me, for the Green Man and also thinking about our customers in the hospitality sector, is how can they safely look after their customers when they want to come back to the pub? How can they make the venues feel safe and clean to welcome people back? So I went out to try and find, what solutions were out there. Essentially, we've all heard and probably seen maybe the Wetherspoons app, for ordering at table, but they were only really available for big corporate businesses because of the costs involved with, building these platforms and the solutions. So I went on a mission to basically find what solutions would be available for your small pub owner, if you're a small cafe owner. And that's where we sort of came upon the Clean Clicks campaign, where we wanted to find various solutions that could help small businesses enable their customers to pay at table, order at table, order in advance as well, which I think is a really interesting concept, which no one really thinks about really. But if you can imagine that you could order your food at at a table booked at 7 o'clock, and you can order and pay for your food at home at 6:30, and then turn up at 7 o'clock and your food is there, because you can't hang around at the bar having a drink these days, not for a long while. So I think and that will help covers turnover quickly as well. So I think these apps are really useful, and I think for a lot of small businesses, I think they'll help them, get through surviving, I think, the first 3 or 4 months, and I think continue afterwards, because what they do also do is if the customers download their app on their phone, then the app's on their phone permanently, and so they're creating, a database and a contact with their customers. They can do discounts, they can do special occasions, so it's actually a good form of marketing as well. So as well as a cost saving as well, because obviously it reduces the amount of time the staff go to the tables to place the order, to collect the payments at the end. I did read somewhere that a pay and order at table app saves about 10-15 minutes potentially per table in staff going backwards and forwards and taking the payments at the end. So while businesses have to reduce their staff numbers potentially initially, that huge benefit. So we've launched the Clean Clicks campaign. I've got it at the Green Man myself, and I can't wait to start using it when we open, hopefully in a couple of weeks. And there's various other solutions as well, but basically we've got loads of different options for hospitality businesses that want to hear about and learn about what solutions are around for them to help them do takeaway orders, collections, and so forth. So many options available, and we sort of found the best ones basically, and we can talk to anybody about them.
That sounds great, actually, and sounds really good solution for those small businesses, and definitely helping the hospitality industry get back on its feet, to be honest. So if somebody does want to know more about that, Richard, and how they could potentially implement that system into their bar or takeaway or whatever it might be, how's the best way for them to get in touch with you for that?
A number of ways. Obviously, we've got a contact form on our website, www.acceptcards.co.uk, and the phone number's on there. But our direct number is 01422 372 818. And yeah, if they call that number, our team are available to talk to them and help them with information about that solution, or indeed any other question about card payments.
And they're all available right now? Are you all working from home? And
yes, yeah. Everyone's got a laptop working from home, I can't believe it's been 3 months almost. But yeah, we've got a really dedicated team, we have a weekly Zoom call, on a Friday, where we get together and talk about work for 10 minutes and have a chat for 50 minutes about all sorts of really wonderful stuff that you do, and it's good fun, and I think we keep that morale going. But the key thing is that we're as available now as we were before. There's nothing's changed whatsoever.
Last question for you. I'm just curious to know, because we found it fairly easy to change and adapt to working from home, but a lot of our service, if you like, is online anyway. I would imagine that it's the same for you, but did you find it easy just to adapt to working from home?
Me personally, I sort of pre-accept cards. I worked from home for 4 or 5 years anyway, or in an office 1 or 2 days at home, or travelling, and I'm also travelling. Even now, pre-COVID, I'd be out 1 or 2 days a week in London or travelling around the country, meeting partners and so forth. So I've been used to it, but obviously not everyone in the office sort of had been. But now I think everyone's got adapted to it really, really well, and sort of probably frustrating when the sun was shining a week or 2 ago when you're inside working. But no, I think everyone's just got on with it, and to say, fortunately, we are, this week we've been so busy, and I think sometimes it's easier being really, really busy than it is sort of not being so busy, and trying to work out what to do sometimes. But yeah, no, it's gone down really well. Yeah.
Thank you ever so much for speaking with us today, Richard. I found that really interesting and informative, and I'm sure there'll be lots of people that do want to get in touch and ask those questions. I know that you are very much a case of just pick up the phone, ask us a question. So I wish you all the success with Accept Cards and the clean clicks. That sounds great, and let's hope that the Green Man is up and running sometime soon. And my husband and I will certainly be having a drive out there and having a drink over there at some point. Would love to.
Yeah, it's an amazing place, the Lincolnshire Wolds. It's absolutely beautiful. Yeah, so it's only an hour and a half away. It's and we'll have some holiday cottage accommodation hopefully open next year as well. So which will be a nice addition. And a village shop as well we're opening.
And there'll be a lot of people that want to go out and have a bit of a drive out somewhere. So it'll be a destination. So
super. Thanks, Janet.
Thank you.